Today I spoke with psychologist Kirsty Miller. We chat about her experience as a student, learning about the field of psychology. She is a social psychologist, so we speak about some of the concerns she has in her own field. And then we move on to just talk a little bit about what's going on Twitter, how people conduct themselves, how you can conduct yourself in a more positive versus negative way on Twitter. And we have a lot of tangents, and it was really fun. I really enjoyed this conversation with Kirsty. Also, I realized I didn't ask her for her information on where to find her. So she is on Twitter at Just Call Me Kirsty. And then her website is kirsty-miller.com. I will put her details, though, in the details section. So without further ado, here is me and Hi, Kirsty.
Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Good. Thank you so much for being with me today. Just for context.
Thank you for asking me.
Okay, well, I'm going to say for context, though, we've been trying to get this working for 45 minutes. So
yes, we have.
Kirsty and I are best friends now. So anyway.
Yes. We've been through a lot together.
Yes. I can't not say something. Okay. But, okay, so to get started. So you are a psychologist, and I'm telling you that. So I'm wondering.
No, please feel free. Reminders are good.
Okay, so how did you even get interested in the first place with psychology?
Oh my gosh, that's a really long story, which might not actually be interesting for your listeners.
Well,
but
okay.
It took a very long time to get around here.
Okay, Cole's Notes version.
No, so it was something, probably like a lot of people, I was always interested in. Probably more the pop psychology or pop perception of psychology rather than actually what psychology is. But I was always interested in what makes people tick. And, it was just one of these things that I kind of had this idea that it was like, psychology is all about, sort of reading minds and, like I say, the kind of pop psychology version. But I was also interested in kind of what makes people do what they do. Okay. And I don't know. I feel like this is...
Sorry, it just sounds like that's psychology to me. But is that pop psychology?
To an extent. There are certain... I don't know how much you've picked up on maybe some of the discussions on Twitter. There are different disciplines within psychology.
Right, yes.
Some of them are sort of harder than others, so they are more scientific, I guess. So on the one hand, you have things like bio or cognitive psychology, which are very, very sciencey, as you can imagine.
Yeah. And I've seen like evolutionary psychology, which is like really not very common.
Yes, it has a bit of a bad rep, which personally I don't agree with, but but I'm actually a social psychologist.
Okay, that's the one I've heard of.
Yes, which is a lot more sort of soft science, should we say? Mm-hmm. And actually some of us, I kind of have my doubts about how sciencey we are sometimes.
Really?
Social psychologists can pick and choose a little bit how sciencey they want to be, which personally I have some issues with, which I've spoken about before, but it's maybe a bit of a sort of in-group discussion, shall we say.
Okay. Well, what's made you doubt the scienciness of it? Like, what has specifically?
I blame our discipline, maybe slightly unfairly, for the rise in a lot of the sort of intersectionality and identity politics that we talk about a lot.
Okay, because it's been social psychologists that have come up with like these frameworks.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
And things like your microaggressions, things like I know a lot of this is sort of, I would say that sociologists and social psychologists fight over this a little bit. Okay. Sort of who came up with all the intersectionality stuff and all the power hierarchies that we are always talking about, which personally I feel are very contrary to science.
Right.
And I've written before about how I feel that some social psychologists tend to try to use the fact that we are, psychology is technically science, and they try and use that to give them standing, but then completely ignore all the scientific principles because they have their own agenda or their own.
Can you give an example? Sorry to put you on the spot, but can you give an example of where?
No. Well, I guess a lot of I don't know if you know Lee. Do you know Lee Justine? Do you?
Yeah.
Apologies, that's not actually how I pronounce your name. So he has written about this at length. So I feel like I don't want to tread on too many toes, because this is actually one of the great things about Twitter is when I was going through my training, we were very much brought up in, yes, microaggressions are real. You can say whatever you like about white people. You can say whatever you like about men. And this is how the world is.
And that was your training specifically? Like they said that outright? Okay.
Not explicitly, I would say, but It was very much like, this is how the world is, so microaggressions are real. If a guy offers to carry something for you, then he is insulting you, and this was
really like opening a door.
Yes, exactly. And this was literally how it was presented to me. And at the time I was a bit like, this doesn't sound right to me. Mm-hmm. But the rest of my class were all like, yeah. And I was like, okay. And my professor was very, and a few times I was like, and he was like, no, and I don't mean this in a way that he was necessarily trying to brainwash us per se, but I think it's very much the mindset, which I have spoken about probably at length too much. I think it is very much the mindset of people who can't conceive of a different way of perceiving the world. Okay. It was almost like, because I was like, yeah, but in some places, colored people aren't the minority. Yeah. But no one actually kind of got what my issue was with that. Like nobody said, oh, but it's because of the power differential. Mm-hmm. It was just presented like, no, but they're the minority. And I was like, there were so many things that were inconsistent to me, but when I tried to question them, the questions were never addressed and it was never discussed. So my background was very much like, basically all the identity politics that we talk about a lot was like, these were presented as facts. And none of my fellow students at the time ever sort of questioned these. So I was just kind of like, okay, like they didn't sit well personally with me, but I didn't really feel confident enough. And I also kind of felt like, oh, if I question this, does this make me a racist?
Yeah, missed something. And maybe exactly. I am. Mm-hmm, yeah.
Exactly. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to say it was an indoctrination. That's a little bit strong, but it was very much presented as, this is the worldview. This is how it is, identity politics. And even then I didn't understand that was the word for it. I didn't understand really that there was this bigger sort of world, because I feel like these are sort of based on sociological principles, but some of it I think is born out of more social psychology. I was just like, oh, this is just a strange way of perceiving the world to me, but this is obviously what everybody does. So it's only literally been within the last few months when I've come across people like Lee and his wider, all stateside based, I've got to say, everybody is based in the States, who are like, oh, there's an alternative to this. So this has literally been my sort of like awakening to like, oh, thank God, it's not me who's weird. There are other people who are like thinking the same as me and who are actually challenging this. And I don't know, and I have spoken about this quite a lot with Lee, but other people as well who kind of subscribe to a slightly different worldview, is that I don't know if it's a sort of like UK stateside divide, because I almost feel like certainly all social psychologists that I've come across over here, they all subscribe to that worldview. And it is almost like if you challenge it, then you are just a racist, or you are a sexist, or you are, whatever.
Like pretty much everyone in the UK that you have come across. Yeah.
Which for me, I find like now, because I'm aware of it and because I've sort of almost come out of that bubble, like for me, as I came through, so it was sort of my master's when I started learning about this, and then I went through my PhD, and And I just felt like there were always some things that just didn't sit quite right with me.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't really articulate them because this was just the way the world was. And I just kind of thought, oh, there's something wrong with me. And maybe I shouldn't actually be admitting that this doesn't sit right with me. So, as I say, I came out the other side and was like, yeah, this just doesn't feel right to me. And then sort of when I got on Twitter and then I became aware that there were other people out there who were questioning this. And it was such a huge relief, but it was also like, okay, this makes me realize how bad it is in the UK, or, you know, that is maybe generalizing slightly, but certainly within our own bubble, how bad it is that people don't even seem to be aware that there is a different perspective out there.
Because it just seems like, oh, it's just racist perspectives and then the right one, or homophobic or transphobic or anti-female or, you know, whatever. Like, yeah. So
this is exactly how it seems to me. Is it's not like, okay, so there's our perspective and then there's people who challenge that. It's almost like they don't even recognize that there's people who will challenge it in good faith. It's just like there's this perspective and then there's racist, sexist, other bad people.
Bad. It's the good and the bad versus differing opinions. That reminds me of like the Greg Lukianov and Jonathan Haidt's book, The Coddling of the American Mind.
Exactly. And I actually just saw a really nice review of that. I don't know if you've seen that was posted just a couple of days ago.
Oh, I haven't seen that one. I've seen most of them.
He doesn't use his real name. He doesn't use his real name, which is what confused me. But I think it's Steve who reviewed The Coddling.
Okay.
But it was really. When I read it, I thought it was a really nice review anyway, and I have a lot of respect for what he says. But he picked up on something again that I'd been very aware of, but I hadn't sort of been able to articulate. And he basically said that, you know, people on the left just see their own perspective and then evil, whereas people on the right, and again, I'm using these terms very loosely because I know, like, we've spoken about this a bit before, haven't we, as well, like sort of political terms, but people on the right can see the left's perspective and can see that it's well-intentioned, but just don't really so much agree with it, which is how I feel. It's like I feel that all these people who I sort of educationally grew up with, I can see how well-intentioned they are. I just think they're very, very misguided. But I know it's come from very good intentions, whereas I feel like for them, it's like their perspective or you're evil. That's the only choices.
Yeah, and to make the distinction, because I think it's the far left that are like, oh, and everyone's evil. Because, I mean, I would say that it's some on the moderate right, and then the centrists, and then the moderate left. I think that the moderate left is pretty... I'm moderate left, so I'm being very kind to myself. But, you know, but I think that, like, we can see... like, oh, I can see where you're coming from as well. It feels like it's just but then I don't know. I'm moderate left. So if you're just moderate left and then far left, I don't know how the left people are. Maybe they're, I don't know. So I don't know. Like, I don't know about them. Maybe they would be kind of rigid against the right as well. I'm not sure. But, and then people do talk about, like, the far right as like, well, they wouldn't, but we just, I don't know, but it seems like the far right isn't very prominent, at least in being in the spaces that I'm seeing. If anything, they're kind of like under the surface, like in their own little weird 4chan, Foursquare.
Yes.
No, 4chan. I don't even know what I'm saying. Foursquare, whatever that is. You know, the underbelly of the dark web.
Yes. Yeah.
Like maybe they're quietly with each other, but I don't know. So I'm not seeing that. But like the social justice friends are very, very public. And so that's what we're seeing. So that's what I talk about most of the time, because I just don't see the right. So that's what I think people in the kind of, you know, the academic IDW type group, like, oh, what about the far right? And well, at least for me, I don't really see them much. We might be seeing them. I know you guys are seeing them more. I know in Europe for sure. I don't know if you guys are seeing the far right kind of like nationalist sort of anti-immigrant people at all. I don't know. I've heard it for sure in like Sweden and in Germany. Yeah. But what about you in Scotland?
You know what? I feel we don't really too much either. Maybe more so in England. So we have a different government to England. So England is the Tory government, so they're right, officially are right. I would say in Scotland, we lean very, very far left. So we have the Scottish Nationalist Party.
Okay.
So who are, and I feel like our First Minister is at great pains to set herself apart from the English government.
Okay.
So certainly I would say we don't really see that here, but it's interesting what you're saying, because I feel like certainly within the circles that I have moved in anyway, so sort of within academia, both the staff and the students, and I still teach, so still within the students, is that they would consider my opinions probably quite far right, and yours as well, which is even more funny, because I know we have slightly different opinions on some things, but I feel like in the kind of identity politics we're fairly well aligned. Yeah. Is that fair? But I am certainly referred to as right, if not hard right, amongst people who know anything about my political beliefs, which I certainly wouldn't label myself that.
No. Oh my god! Like it's like cringy for me. Like, and then the alt-right adjacent.
Me too.
Yeah, there's the term the adjacent thing, where that's almost them giving you a little, like, okay, fine, if you self-identify as not alt-right, at the very least you're alt-right adjacent, like Joe Rogan, and I'm just like, really? Legalizing all drugs, that's alt-right adjacent? Like, anyway.
Yeah, it's crazy, but I feel like, but as well, because I feel like now my sort of intellectual world is more American based, even though I'm still very out of touch with, and I'm referring to you as American, which I
I mean, I'm Canadian, but like, I mean, I'm half American, so it's fine. Yeah.
That's okay. That's good. I can forgive myself for that then. So I guess in terms of what I'm aware of in the world is more stateside based. But when I think of, people I know in real life, they very much would consider me, as I say, sort of fairly extreme right, if they know my political beliefs. So I don't really speak about them as such.
Really? Like, you don't feel like you... Like, you mean you don't even want to, or you feel like, oh, I wish I could, but I can't? Like, where are you? Do you even have the desire to, because it won't go great? Or are you like, I wish I could just be honest? Like,
yeah, it's strange, because I feel like, and it is that strange thing about Twitter, isn't it? I feel I can actually be more honest on Twitter, because now I feel like, and I hate this because I hate the whole sort of group identity thing. I hate that. But I feel like in a way I almost have people who I feel that I can sort of express myself a little bit more honestly with on Twitter, which is maybe partly as well the anonymity that not very many of you I actually know in real life. But, I count myself as knowing given what we've been through together.
Yes, we've been through so much. Yes.
We have.
We made it.
We have.
Yeah.
So I don't actually have many people I know in real life on Twitter. So I feel like, in a way, I can be more honest, but I don't say the things I say on Twitter on Facebook, for example, which is where I have, like, my people I know in real life.
And to be honest, I don't either. But
that's interesting. Yeah. Why don't you? Is it the same reason?
Because it's not even... It's because... I'm not a...
Is it not really real?
I don't feel like it. Like, I am not afraid to... Oh, maybe I am. No, it's more that I'm like, okay, I could, but I've tossed my hat in the ring before, and then people, I've had two responses. I try, like, people say some sort of generalized thing about women in the workplace, or like there's something about me too, or something, and I said something about what I thought. And then someone else was like, I don't like doing these kinds of things not even on my comment, but in the same thread. I don't think we should hash these things out online. I think it's better in person. And it wasn't even to me, but I was just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
No,
maybe
they just wanted to say their thing, and they don't really want, and I don't even think it was the girl who posted it. It was just someone else. It just felt like, okay, you don't really want to be challenged at all. It just didn't feel like that. Yeah. But then also I've also gone in like, oh, it was that tweet that someone put up about if only men had, okay, ladies, all men have a curfew at 9 p.m. What will you do?
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that one. And someone copied and pasted it and like had it in Facebook, and they're like, okay, guys, so I saw this. So like, what do you think, ladies? Whatever. So, I mean, okay, if you are happy with that, I don't want to,
Yeah.
if some of them sees this, like, I don't want to just be bashing it. If you have ideas of things, okay, that was fine. And that's what I put in, because a friend of mine, he put in his 2 cents.
Yeah.
He, watch out, him. But I was like, I'm going to back him up because I agreed with him. And I was also, so that was the first time I was like, okay, I think I'm going to do what I don't even know if I just had joined Twitter. So I was like, I think I'm going to try doing, I didn't want to just be so hypocritical so that I'm on Facebook. Like I only joined like Twitter in this past June, 2018 June. So I was like, okay, so I'm so free. Wow, I can't believe how many thoughts I have. Wow, I didn't have any desire to put them up on Facebook. Now that I'm on both, I am clearly not saying things on Facebook. So maybe I'll try to say something just to be like, okay, I'm going to not whatever. So I added to his, and it just like went on for like days. And it just wasn't as fun as Twitter is. And I've had a few Twitter things kind of go on for days, which is not often, but like, I kind of just like, I don't care. But like I know the people, and because I know them, I would rather say it in person. And and they're people who I might be like acquaintancy friends, where it's like I don't really see them, but if I did, I would probably, hey, so like what did you mean by that? Like I just am wondering. I think I would, and I don't want to be like, I totally would in person, but like I would. I don't mind. I don't mind disagreeing with people if they're okay with it in person. But I don't want to be labeled as evil. Oh my goodness, I'm falling apart. Okay. Anyway.
Like we say, it's been a long journey, isn't it?
Oh my gosh.
To this chat.
This is so funny. It's good though. Anyway, but like, yeah, so I guess I kind of like, it was just too much. It's not what I was looking for Facebook to be. Facebook is like a scrapbook for my kids for the future.
Yes, exactly. And for like family members and stuff, right, as well?
Yeah,
so for them, pictures of your kids and, you know, maybe without getting too controversial, like a space that isn't really for controversy. Perhaps.
Yes. And when it does, it's not my favorite. And even on Twitter, like I do feel like that bubble is like, it's right. Like that sort of echo chamber, like I totally I've accepted it. I'm in a centrist, moderate echo chamber. I surrounded myself with people, not on purpose. I mean, there are some people who are, they're on like mildly on the other, like they're not, like they're on the edges of the center. Like it's so, I don't have hardcore feminists or, you know, hardcore trans activists or hardcore male men's rights activists. Like I haven't gone out that direction. So I do feel safe on Twitter, to just be honest. So so you feel like that?
Yeah, I do, which I think is partly because I have found people who think like me, which for me is a revelation. But it's interesting what you say about echo chambers, because for me, I feel like I have so many more varied perspectives on Twitter, which is actually one of the reasons that I love it, is that I have seen so many different perspectives on Twitter than I do in my everyday life, and than I do in, certainly when I was like properly encased in academia. But certainly I would say like my Facebook is very much an echo chamber, because I have a lot of people, I guess, from, you know, similar... Should I say? No, I do actually have a bit of a mix of people, but I guess predominantly as people from university in one way or another, whether it be colleagues or people I was studying with or my own students. So I feel like that is very much an echo chamber. Whereas when I came to Twitter, one of the things I found was refreshing was that I saw I actually saw a lot of perspectives that I had secretly been hiding myself. So what I thought, but I'd been hiding from everybody else. But also I do see a lot of perspectives that are very different from my own. And I intentionally try and follow people. Like you say, like probably not.
Like maybe it's semantics of language. Like maybe it isn't quite as echo chambery as some spaces on Twitter. Maybe there totally, yes. Like there are nuances of things that we've talked about of sort of, oh well, I actually disagree. Maybe it's the echo chamber of I respectfully disagree. Like maybe that's what I'm going, like the people are fine with discourse, and in other spaces they're like, no, block. Like I've even had a situation where someone was like, chick blocked me because I disagreed, and then I was like, I'm gonna see, because I went, and then I was like, but this, and then I got I got blocked too.
Oh wow.
So like it was just someone was bashing men. She was just some girl like talking about bashing men, and I actually was like, well, and then she blocked me too. So some people just any sort of but like they just don't want any of that. So I guess like it is, you're right, it isn't as echo chambery as others. I just made that up, echo chambery.
No, I think that works. Definitely.
Okay. So it isn't as much as
the meaning came across.
yeah. So it's kind of like a nice mix, but of willingness for discussion.
Yes, definitely. And I think, like for me, I use it to follow people who I have disagreed with, but in a civil way. So at least it is like, okay, because I try to be conscious, and I'm sure I kid myself to an extent, because I think we all do kid ourselves to an extent, but I try to be conscious of the fact that maybe I am in an echo chamber, and that I do, we all reinforce our own beliefs and whatever. So that is why I do intentionally try and follow people who I don't agree with. But then I feel like, well, my everyday life is following people I don't agree with. But I feel like now at least I can say that, whereas, I still would be, and I'm considered, sort of, I would be like seriously shunned for my views amongst people I know. And I don't feel like my views, as I say, I don't feel like my views are that extreme, but
no.
So it's a strange thing. And even the other day, and I will clarify this by saying that he doesn't hugely understand politics or doesn't understand the terminology. But the other day, I'd made some comment to an ex who I'm still friends with, but he obviously knows me quite well. So I do tend to be a little bit more honest with him, but I know that he doesn't necessarily agree with my political viewpoints, which is fine. But I'd made some sort of flippant comment, and he was like, oh, is this some more of your alt-right stuff? And I was just like, I'm sorry, what? And clarify this. I feel like I have to clarify this by saying he doesn't actually know what alt-right means.
Okay.
So, but to him, he just thinks that means like extreme right. Whereas we know there's like other things associated with
like
that.
neo-Nazi, like
no, not quite that far. I hope not. I think he just means that as like being quite right wing. Like that's how he views it.
Okay.
And he said that, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute. I'm fine with being called, right of center, which I think is usually what people would refer to me as.
Okay.
But I was like, one, you don't know what that means, and that is not a term that I want to be associated with in any way. But two, that is how you view me. You view me as, like, in your perception of politics, my views are extreme right, And I just think that there's no nuance in that.
But
like,
what is extreme right then in reality? Like, where do you, if you kind of alter your perception to be, okay, so here's us, and then that person's the extreme right, as like you, like, oh, Kirsty's extreme right. But then who are the actual extreme right people? Yeah, like, where do they even fit? Like, they're just off the charts, I guess. Like, you can't even.
Yeah, I think that's it. And I think there is, like, there's people like me and I think, most people I sort of know would be probably charitable to me and would be like, oh, she's sort of got in with the wrong crowd and she's been kind of like brainwashed a little bit. I think that's genuinely how they would view like my political political ideas, because I don't subscribe to the identity politics, which is what we were all brought up with. And as I say, I include sort of academics, and I include people I studied with, and also my own students. They were sort of brought up with that. Like, for them, that's the way the world is. Women are hard done by, and all that kind of stuff. that we speak about a lot, that is their genuine view. And to them, anybody who doesn't believe that is right wing and is trying to sort of perpetuate the unfair treatment of women.
Mm-hmm.
So for them, I think they would be like, oh yeah, so she's one of these ones who's been sort of radicalized by, men.
Okay.
By the patriarchy.
You've just internalized the patriarchy.
Exactly that favorite thing. And I think that's genuinely what they would think, which I feel is really sad. And I find it really disappointing as well, because these are all people who are allegedly intelligent. And I'm not saying they're not intelligent, but I feel like it's very lazy thinking. It's very uncharitable to be like, right, so there's my view, and then anybody else is a racist or is whatever.
And well, speaking of charitable, like the most charitable view I can look at those perspectives and is because they don't want people to be marginalized, and they see that there has been victims and
which is
groups
absolutely right.
Yes, and they see, I mean, there is still abuse with women. There are still shelters where women need to flee, right? Yeah, and I forget that, to be honest. Like when I'm talking about, like, it's the best. Like I do that. I just, like, it's the best it's ever been, ever, for women, ever, like in all of history. Like.
Which is true, but then but then
there's the like, okay, yeah, but then tell that to the woman who was this, that, and the other, and is in this, fled her, home from her boyfriend with her kids, and is in this shelter, or I mean, that's not like that's bad, but I mean, or way worse, women or girls in the sex trade and who are being, trafficked all around the world. Exactly. Yes. Absolutely. And I don't want to look past that, like, at all, because those are issues, because it's almost, it's a pendulum, right? So you either think it's the best it's been and then you forget the rest, or you think it's the still horribly bad and then it's no progress. No progress has been made. So I'm do my best to, that's where actually I do find Twitter is helpful. I'm touching my hair again.
I don't blame you. It's so beautiful.
I should put it up like you.
Mesmerizing.
I should put it up. I should put it up next time. Anyway, but like I do find that I need to reorient myself, and talking with people who have a bit of a different perspective helps me. Like the other day I was so enraged about this. I don't remember what exactly. Well, you all know it.
Was this last night? And you were like,
no. I was okay. Yesterday I was a little bit angsty. So no, but maybe it was a week ago when the trans athletes, the two of them took first and second place. Mm-hmm. That was the one, and I was so like, are you kidding me? Will we need first, second, and third? Like, is that what we need? Is that what we're gonna wait for to be, women's sports to be completely obliterated? So I was really just angry and like upset about that, because I think that sometimes, again, pendulum, right? I know that's what I was upset about last night and this morning. The lesbian spaces being invaded by trans female penises. That was what it was. Anyways, that's why I was so annoyed with it. So I was really just, so the thing, last week about that article talking about the two trans women winning, it was just, like, I get kind of defensive for women when things like that happen, even though a lot of people would be like, oh, but like, aren't you so on the side of like men and the masculine because you're against toxic masculine, you're using the words toxic masculinity and blah, blah. Yeah. And I've even written about like, I'm falling apart again. I've even written about an article about that Gillette thing and what do we need to do to find the proper sort of hero to look at as for men. Yeah. And I'm not even a man, but I have 3 boys, so I've been really in that space.
You're invested in that. Like
I am. Yeah. Well, so yes.
It's very important as a mother, I think, because you know what, it genuinely terrifies me. So I don't have kids, but if I were to, I am genuinely scared that it would be a boy
because of
all this stuff going on, and I would much rather have a girl. Like, I think she would have a much easier life. I think she'd have a much better life. And I feel like I would be able to guide her through it much more easily than I would a boy.
Well, it's true unless she wants to compete, like, in some sort of athletic event.
Well, this is true.
Like,
this is true.
But I know. But, like, that's the thing. No, but that's where I was going with that. Is like, yeah, so typically I'm more defensive of men because I don't like the typical man. Like, that's just not an argument. You know, that's just a phrase.
Yes. Yeah.
But when it comes to, like, these sort of the insistence of this sort of male invasion of female spaces, particularly of women's athletics, I just get so, like, we can't do better than what we can. We don't have the literal strength, and
yeah,
like we like, I mean, and then you get to fighting, like the UFC fighting situation from a few years ago. Fallon Fox, like, almost put, like, she put someone in the hospital. She could have killed her. Anyway,
yeah.
So it's just, I just was getting very, like, trans women, and very frustrated. And then I was like, okay, I need to think about this again. And I tweeted out about, I have been very generalizing from this, you know, situation, like the first and second place, like, athlete, whatever. And I just was like, okay, I think I need to take a step back and realize that the activists aren't the entire community. Some of them aren't even trans. Definitely. And a lot of trans people just want to live their lives and not be discriminated against. And I'm all for not discriminating against people for their choices.
Definitely.
And I'm like, I just don't want to be like, I'm not anti-trans people living their lives, okay? I just don't like invading female safe spaces, you know, or not necessarily safe. Well, yeah, I guess, like, when like domestic abuse shelters, like that, but, like, even just spaces in sports. So I mean, so that was that.
No, I completely understand, and I think the good thing about it is that although you get bombarded with this, you know, or you get bombarded with whatever that can be really upsetting or frustrating or whatever, is that you can, you know, find people who intentionally find people who, again, like we say, are reasoned and, you know, will give a thoughtful opinion of their perspective. And then I think that really helps because, you know, you can get swept up in it. And I think that's what we always have to guard against with things like social media, is because it is so easy to jump on the bandwagon. And I think we do have to constantly guard against that, which is why it is really good to take that step back or be like, okay,
need to reorient.
I am going to follow some reasonable people who will give their perspective rather than, you know, screaming insults at you or whatever, which ultimately helps no one, you know, who will give a considered, thoughtful perspective to give you some insights that perhaps we didn't have before. How did we get onto this?
I don't know, but it's interesting. I think, you know what? I started with one question at the beginning about how did you start in psychology, but this is exactly what I would have, like, I wanted to go in this direction anyway.
Okay.
Because I actually did want to ask you, do you remember how we met on Twitter?
I do.
Okay, I want to hear your perspective of it.
That was actually, I think that's the best meeting I've ever had with anyone. Yeah. Because
the Gillette ad. That's the scene. Do you remember that? That's
no, wait. I thought it was the abortion.
Oh, that was we were already friends.
Oh, was that after?
Yeah,
was that after?
Yeah, that was after.
Yes, it was. You're right, because that is what sticks in my mind.
Okay.
Which I know you've already spoken about, so you probably don't want to talk about this. But
no, we can. No, we can. Yeah, no, I just didn't want to.
We sort of like spoke properly, wasn't it?
It was what?
I think that was sort of the first time we spoke properly.
Yeah. So I'll give the side I remember, and then sure. I'm so good. I'm like, I'm gonna talk, and then you go.
It is your podcast.
So okay, but since it's the second, that's our second like kind of interaction, but like the first time that because I messaged you, yeah. So the first time we even became like we followed each other and became friends, it was right after the Gillette ad came out, and we were.
And I also feel really bad because I think I actually called you the wrong name.
Oh, yeah, you did.
I think I called you Anthea, which I do need to apologize.
I don't care.
That way when you're like, especially when you're wound up. So I was just like, yes, Anthea's right. And then afterwards I was like, no, she's not even Anthea.
You've called me the correct name since, so you've made up for it, girl. No. Oh, I don't think I've laughed ever this much for one of these. All 5 of them I've done. So, no. Okay.
That's a good sign.
So, no, it's good. It's good. No, okay, no. We were like battling a male feminist who was, I thought I was doing so well though. I was being like, I can see where you're coming from. You
are so good at being diplomatic, whereas I am a lot less so.
Well, you know what? It's funny because I'm not in person. Like, I don't know.
I feel like I am in person, but I am not online.
Yeah, we trade.
Maybe Twitter. And I do wonder about this, which I know is a complete tangent, but do you feel like Twitter is a way of maybe expressing yourself that you can't? I know people talk about this a lot.
Well, it depends
in a different way than you do in real life.
Yes, it depends on what you mean by can't, because I'm going to pull a Jordan Peterson there. It depends on what you mean, because I'm very happy to say my things in person. But I am quick to speak and not necessarily think through what I'm going to say. Whereas Twitter, so in a can't way, it's like it gives me an opportunity to sort of stop, like read what are they saying. Okay, I want to be like, oh really? Like I want to be like, okay, no, but where will that get me? What's the point? It's I'm not on Twitter to be doing like, okay, like really, like, I'm not I'm sometimes sarcastic, but like,
to me that willpower, like, respect, because I feel like that is something but I feel like I'm practicing. I'm trying very hard to improve my sort of like, and do what you're doing and be like, right, don't just react.
Yeah. Because
in real life, I think I overthink things in real life, and when I'm talking to people, again, like I take a lot of time, and I think partly it's because I'm with students a lot of the time, so you can't.
Right. Yeah. No. And so it's different. It's a different platform for different purposes, almost, right? Yeah. So
exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, sorry. I also feel like I have a mission of like, I'm not gonna let them change me. Like I don't ever call anyone names, like really. Like I'm just like, oh, you won't make me call you a name. You won't make me be rude to you, because I can't stand people being rude. So you're not gonna change me. Like that's kind of my like stubborn. It's like a stubbornness, although I have felt like when I defend, because I was like annoyed about wanting to defend someone the other day, and I was like quite more sarcastic than I was like, no, don't get emotionally involved.
Yeah, but, don't think to their level.
Yeah, so that's hard. But like when I'm not really like, if it's just for me, I do find it like, okay, think it through. Okay, but we're gonna tangent that.
Yes, sorry.
So no, I like it, but I just am trying to stay for for continuity purposes, because this happens to me where I watch one of these and I'm like, but I'm curious, what about the last one? And they're like, and they're just and they can't hear me because it's recorded. So
I'm the same, yeah, and I'm really bad for tangents, so I'm sorry.
I'm fine with them as long as we meander back. So okay, so this male feminist, he was talking about Gillette, and I was just trying to be like, I can see where you're coming. It was the first time I really was like, okay, I'm gonna try to be as kind a perspective of reading, and I'm like, I have a son in martial arts as well, or no, that was later. We had even a little bit more of a back and forth. The first one is like, my husband like plays and runs with my kids, and we don't ever ask for consent, because he was saying the only time I ever like touch my son is hugs, and I ask for consent or something. And and so I was
I think I must have come in after
that. Was after.
Oh, okay.
Because that was my first thing with him, and I was like, well, I'm like, but my kids love playing chase with my husband, and they're like so happy, and they're not asking, they just literally run away, and that's what that means, is chase, please. And then he like tickles them, and then mommy's rule is when they yell stop, you stop, because sometimes my husband forgets, and I'm like, no, stop. Yes. Like, listen. Even my youngest, he's like, stop, daddy. And then I was like, okay. And it was so cute. He's learning. But anyway, and then dude writes back, well, you do you, basically. And then he wrote back again later, oh, wait, actually, I think that there's a sort of implied consent from, like, in general, from your household, whatever. Just kind of making it so it makes sense for him. And then I can't remember what your thing was with him. Oh, no, it was the smile things. He wrote on the same thread with someone else that he put up some sort of, like, come on, man, smile. Your face looks pretty. He was doing some sort of like thing. And I was like, I've never been told to smile actually ever in my life.
Yes.
And that was where we met. Yes, it's all coming back. You know, these wonderful experiences on Twitter. So
isn't it funny how our brains retain these things and you think of all the things that our brains could like hang on to?
But it was a high emotional thing. So, right. So I said, I've never experienced being asked to smile ever from what I remember. And then he like went off on me. Like he was like, all right, you go tell all these women who have been told this and who have felt victimized by this and felt violence from this statement, you go and tell them that they shouldn't be feeling blah, blah, blah. And then you came in and were like, excuse me, it's her own personal experience.
Oh my God.
You're just shaming her for her experience. Sorry, I'm adding my like attitude onto your little Scottish.
You don't know, but I love it. Okay. But I have to say, I do not like my Twitter persona. And
really?
I think that's one of the things as well, because I feel like people who know me in real life, I hope, but I think generally think I'm quite a nice person, but I think people who meet me on Twitter would be like, oh my God. Like, I don't feel like I come across as being nice, but then I also feel like sometimes, sorry, I know I'm going off again, but like sometimes when, especially for women, well, I mean, in this case, it was a male feminist, but, you know, these kind of conversations, they do annoy me so much because I feel like it's trying to legitimize hate. So I feel, in a way, I can sort of legitimately be sarky, which I think is just me trying to make justifications in my head for, like, being ruder than I would normally be. But, you know, like, in situations like what you're saying, I think it just gets to me so much because, you know, him making this huge deal about women being told to smile. And then in my head, I'm also like, but there are women being trafficked. There are women who are, you know, victims of domestic abuse.
And we talked about that because I brought up about the No Hijab Day and supporting that. And you were like, oh, I haven't heard about that. Cool. Yeah.
And that I think is why I personally get so worked up, is that I'm like, you are taking, not you, he and people like him are taking away from women who are genuinely, you know, like we said, like, you know, certain cultures or certain situations or just, you know, people, just things that we can't even imagine are happening to them.
Real and violence, then I feel like actual violence. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. You know, and violence beyond which we can comprehend, thank God. But, and then on the other hand, you have people like him who are making this huge deal about someone telling you to smile. And I'm like, I like, genuinely, I can't comprehend that, you know.
Well,
I feel like
it might almost be, oh, sorry, you feel like...
No, I was just going to say, like, you know, when I was saying earlier that I feel like I know that a lot of these things come from a good place. When it's things like that, or women saying, you know, all men, whatever, like, to me, I'm like, no, I don't think that's coming from a good place. Like, no way can I conceptualize how that's coming from a good place. Whereas, you know, there are other things, you know, that I think, I think you're misguided, but I think you are genuinely trying to fight a good cause, or what you think is a good cause. But things like that situation, I'm just like, nah, you're not coming from a good place here. You're just trying to stir shit, or you're just trying to like...
It's a weird, like, sort of self-loathing thing too for like male feminists. It doesn't... Yeah. Well, and again, the word feminist is so arbitrary because it means there's so many different interpretations. Like, I mean, I'm an egalitarian feminist, if that is a thing. I don't know. Or just egalitarian. Do I need to add like, I want men and women to have equal opportunity, you know? So... And
that's how I feel it should be. But, like, it's strange because I don't associate the word feminism with equality as you mean it, like genuine equality. I associate it with women who want preferential treatment, which I personally can't associate with at all. But, you know, using your definition, I'm like, yeah, you know, that's same. I completely agree with you. But yeah, sorry. So back to the story. But yeah,
I think that was it for that one. And so then
But I felt like that was such a great, because it, you know, I learned something from you. It was great. I then followed the lady you referred to me to, and then it was like, so I learned this whole other stuff that I didn't know. You know, that came out of quite a toxic, well, certain bits of it were toxic, right?
I've never seen you as mad. Like, that was the only, I've never actually seen you as upset, is that one. That was the first.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so you've actually, you're not, I don't find you to be normally that perturbed, but
Oh, thank you. Well, I'm trying to learn from people like you, and there's another guy, Jonathan, as well, who I don't know if you follow him.
I think so.
Who I speak to quite a lot, and he is so good. And again, I think we're all roughly on the same spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
We all have slightly different opinions, but I think we respect each other for that. But people like you are so good at, even when people are really, really pushing your buttons, like that conversation, you are so good at not rising to it. And I'm like,
that's the stubborn. I won't let you change me. Yeah.
But that's amazing. That is what I am aspiring to. So I'm trying really hard, but I think
you're doing really well. Well, because that brings us to the next time that you're thinking of, like when we actually had a more one-on-one interaction. Because someone was saying that, like, oh, you are full of hate and want to kill babies. Like, I think that was, and you were like,
along those lines, yeah. And I think, and in that situation, I feel like I am more forgiving because I completely understand how emotive a subject it is. So yeah, this was the abortion topic. Sorry.
Yeah. So the third term abortion was just passed in New York. I think that was what it was. You were commenting on.
And I think my comment was along the lines of, I'm very much about sentience. I'm very much about, personally, my view is like, I try to, what's the word? My goal in life would be to reduce suffering as much as possible. So for me, I kind of view sentience is important because awareness of suffering is what matters. So from that perspective, feti, I don't know what the plural is. But even like very young children and even almost up to sort of toddler age, you're a mom, so you'll also know this from personal experience, will only get a sort of awareness of suffering or fear or sort of awareness of the pain they're in at a certain age. So for me, obviously I am not for in any way killing children, which I know is a current political topic over in the States as well.
Yeah, it got worse after that. Yeah, but
it did.
But you just made your comment, and then someone said you like killing babies or something.
Yeah. So I made some comment about sentience and well, what was it? It was something to do about. Oh yeah. So if an unwanted child is brought into the world, then maybe it's actually going to suffer more. So that was my point. So I was kind of looking at it like, if people are forced to have children they don't want to have, then, the child will just be brought into a world of suffering, which led to a great big argument, which, again, was fine. And I completely understand other people's perspectives. But yeah, there was a lot of, oh, you're so evil and you want to kill babies. And there was a lot of those, which doesn't actually bother me in that context because I completely understand how emotional people get about it. And also I understand that if you're religious or if you believe that life begins at fertilization or whatever, then obviously any argument about suffering is completely irrelevant. So I completely understand that. So yeah, it was then I think that you private mailed me, right? So it was in all of this, people telling me that I was evil and whatever. And we ended up having a really nice conversation about that, right?
Yeah, so we did. Yeah.
About your perspective. Which again, I think, and there's some other girls who I've spoken to about this on Twitter as well, because I really do understand, especially if you are religious, I completely understand that means that any form of abortion is not okay. And of course, if that's your belief system, then that is completely consistent and that's totally fine. I'm never going to argue with that. It's not personally what I believe, but that's fine. So anyway, we had this really nice conversation and you were telling me about your opinions on it. And I think it was just that I really appreciated that you reached out to me.
To have like a
lots of people telling me
things are being said and it's crazy. What?
Yeah, and the thing is as well, like throughout all of that, I was never once saying, abortion should be, because I think abortion is one of these things that is so personal. And if you're completely against it, then you have every right to be. If you're completely for it, personally, I think you have every right to be. And I just really appreciated you sort of taking time to reach out and be like, okay, so maybe we differ, and sort of playing devil's advocate, which you do very well.
Oh, do I?
Yes, you do.
That. Okay.
So
okay.
So yeah, it was a nice conversation, I felt anyway. So then, and then I read your blog as well, which really was great, which I wanted to talk to you about, but it's probably a conversation for another day about the kind of like political side of things and what led you to.
Blog? Oh, you mean the article I wrote about like my Did I send it to you?
Yeah, it was your political wilderness. Story.
Yeah. That was an article. Yeah, for it was funny. I'm not even. I mean, you're the psychologist, not me. But I wrote it was for a psychological magazine called Third Factor, and it was about my openness to experience. It's yes. And it was my political journey. I think I took a play on the There and Back Again for Hobbit, like A Hobbit's Tale, by Bilbo Baggins. I think I said there and halfway back again, because I've gone quite like far, like one end to the other to the middle. Like that's kind of where I've not radical, but like vacillating between a few different political spaces. And it was very long, so thank you for reading it.
No, I really enjoyed that, and there were so many things I wanted to pick up on, and I remember because it was sort of like in the middle of stuff, and I was like, I want to talk to you about this, but which again right now is probably not.
Well, I do at some point I would like to, yes.
Yeah, I really would, because the political aspect was really interesting, but also what you were saying about your openness to experience and challenging yourself, and honestly I have so much respect for that, which was one of the reasons as well that we sort of, I felt I wanted to keep in touch with you.
No, me too.
And you allowed me to keep in touch with you.
No, I love it. Yeah.
But I was like, it is such a hard thing to do. It is such a hard thing to challenge ourselves and challenge our beliefs. And I don't know. Do you want to explain?
Change your mind? Yeah. Well, I think that like the example from what you were our conversation that kind of matched the article I sent you was so regarding the abortion topic. So I am and have always been pro-life. However, I recently, I think in the summer, listened to a podcast. I can't remember if it was Brett or Eric Weinstein. One of them said this idea that you can't get 100% of what you want 100% of the time, but you might be able to get 80% of what you want most of the time. And so that, I don't know why I even applied this to abortion, but I thought, okay, so if I apply this to abortion, I don't want more formed babies to be killed, because if you can if babies can survive outside of the womb, why not? That's kind of, so I would prefer before potential, and I don't know the science on it, but like before any sort of like pain, sort of anything can be felt, before there's any sort of body, like when it's still cells or like barely formed or whatever. I guess I don't like 8 to 10 weeks, whatever, the morning after pill and like whatever stronger you can get from, to those types of things. I was like, okay, maybe I will, if I had to vote on, in Canada we have third term abortion always forever. So it's already been like that. But again, it's a little bit different because we don't have Planned Parenthood like the States. We don't have any sort of financial business in it. So I do feel like it's not as pushed, I will say, in a way, because it's just we're publicly funded, so publicly you don't have to, whatever. Sorry, that's kind of its own. I'm not a fan of Planned Parenthood because its founder was a eugenicist and put most of her clinics specifically for abortions in Black neighborhoods. So I'm just, anyway.
I have to say, I don't actually know very much of the history of them at all, so I should maybe look into that. So anyways, I'm not a fan of Planned Parenthood. But anyway, but as far as for the abortion debate, I was like, okay, if Canada was like, okay, we're doing a referendum, we're going to alter abortion laws, here, take a vote, and like the different levels you can vote of like when the cutoff should be. And so before these thoughts, I would have said, so no abortion. But then I was like, I want change. If you want change, this is a very political, like politician-y kind of way of being. Not my favorite. but I'm like, if you want, I would want change enough that I would
because no one's moving. Up until third term, none.
Yeah.
No one's moving. Like, no one will move. Like, if we just keep these, whatever. So I was like, okay, well, then I will move. And I will say the 8 to 10, 12, whatever that period is. Like, I would vote for that. So that it can give the option, but you've just got to act quickly. Like, that's all. And then, and the other thing about, I don't know if we ended up talking about this, but the thing about it's abortion is a symptom, because it's not like it's a disease like AIDS. Actually, no, AIDS even is its own. It's all sex. It all has to do with sex.
Right.
Like it's not. What a silly example. AIDS. That's no, but it's not. It's not, a flu. Like, it's not something that's like, and then it's, or a genetic disease, I suppose, is better. Like, it's not their fault. They got it, and like, it's not like they've got to have the thing. No, it happens, and there's unwanted pregnancies because of lack of education, and like, I'm not at all for like the abstinence like, no, what does that do?
I think we have to be realistic, right?
So yes, so anyway, so to me, like, the abortion debate is something that, I understand it why, and I think that every being has a sort of divine life, I guess, like the Jordan Peterson's, like, the logos, I guess, that kind of a reference. People will get that, but I do think that there is something special about each person. So hence that sort of pro-life stance. But I have shifted because I want, someone has to, like, as if like my decision will, but I think this is what everyone, somehow we need to be willing to give some ground for change to actually happen. And then kind of look at it as, okay, so this is its own thing, but what is this a symptom of? Maybe, and it's usually, there are cases, okay, like rape, which is horrible, and like a horrible deformities like that. Okay, but I don't think those are the norm. I feel like those are the exceptions. Like, when you look at the stats, and I don't have any stats right now, but like, I'm pretty sure a lot of it is like young. I didn't want to get pregnant. I'm only 16.
Yeah, and I can't look after it. Yeah.
Right? Yeah, and it just, we need to have education. Like, that is clearly what needs to be. Let's get preventative measures. Anyway, I'm going on a little spiel.
No, I completely agree with you. And I think it is such a tricky subject because, and I think that's why I have so much respect for you as well, is because it's not your first choice. Like, you're you're sort of like, the road you're taking now is not, I guess, how you feel emotionally.
No,
it's not kind of like how you necessarily what you feel is right, but you're still having that conversation, and you're still willing to look at what is actually the best thing to do in this situation.
And a lot of people would say you're actually pro-choice, Andrea. Like, a lot of people on the right would be like, well, no, you're not pro-life anymore. So So some would have a lot of words to say about what I just said. Exactly. And I think, but you are willing to like look at it and think about it, which is, as I say, especially when it's against what you feel emotionally, is an incredibly difficult thing to do. And and you are still willing to sort of take others' perspectives, like you say, in certain cases, and which is so important. By the way,
that is what. Sorry,
it's so important to take other perspectives.
Right, exactly.
And be allowed to be allowed to take others' perspectives.
Exactly. And I think like anybody who is willing to especially set aside their own feelings and not just like scream and call names at people who have different opinions, and especially, as I say, about, people are so protective. And I think it is one of these topics that are sort of like innate human nature almost kicks in, isn't it? It's like,
it's like a visceral, like, gut feeling. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Especially women, I guess. I genuinely do think that sort of our protective hormones or our protective nature, even those of us who aren't mothers, it does almost sort of kick in, and you do sort of lose all sense of reason. And I can completely understand that. So I think that's why I have so much respect for people who can sort of like
stop and step back.
Exactly.
It's been a work. It's been a work in progress. Yeah.
But honestly, it's so much. Do you feel like, was that even harder for you being a mother yourself, do you think? Or does that not really come into it? Are you able to sort of put that aside?
I don't know. Like, I don't think so, because I think I was using my more logical side. Like, I've seen, like, I mean, some pro-lifers are amazing at, like, I mean, Ben Shapiro is, like, one of the best for defending pro-life stance. But, like, I've seen, okay, I'm going to sound so judgmental, but it's just honest. Okay. So I've seen, like, women defend it. I shouldn't say women. I saw one woman defend it, and she, like, broke down into tears. And I know, like, I'm like, okay, like she, you know, it was like, when you have a life in you, and she started crying. And like, I don't want to be negative towards her, because I imagine she thought about it since she's, like, advocating against it. She probably, I mean, I don't actively go and advocate, you know, so maybe when she might have thought about it a lot when she was pregnant or something, and maybe that's why she got emotional. But I don't, and I mean, by the way, I'm super emotional. Like, I'm a super sensitive person. But when you defend something, I think you lose the argument when you have any sort of tears.
Yes.
I just feel like it's lost. It's lost, because what are they going to do? What are they going to, are they going to double down and be a jerk when you're crying, right?
Yeah, sorry, I'm doing a you there.
Yeah, I know. Fall apart.
The problem is that emotions can be used to manipulate.
Right.
But I think in your case it was genuine, and I think sometimes there's something, you know.
Well, and to be fair, in her case it was genuine too, I think. This one woman who, whatever. Yeah. But I just don't think that she shouldn't be the one answering the questions on the panel if she can't hold it together. Sure. Like, I would say that for myself. Like, that's why I kind of am like, oh, I don't think I used my emotions to decide this, because I probably would just be, like, crying, you know. Like, I think I used the logic. That's why I didn't think of it as a mother's perspective. So,
but then I think that's good, because, like, important decisions should be made. You know, what is it, like, the law is reason free from passion.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I totally believe that about, like, most important things, is that, you know, yes, emotions are good and well, good, you know, they are important.
They have their place. Like, they have their absolute place, because, like, you can be totally, like, a total jerk if you're like, I'm just being logical. Well, you're a robot, you know, then.
Yeah. Exactly.
But
it's like the whole, I don't know if you've seen it the last few days, the whole thing about a university being, you know, it should be activism. Have you seen that?
I did. I saw you. Yeah, I actually liked it just before we started playing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, that's.
Can you explain that?
To me, well,
what did the tweet say? It was like, university should be activism, like, over and over and over again, or something.
Yeah, okay. From someone who I'm not a fan of anyway. So that is my emotion coming in. Mm-hmm. But I have seen that elsewhere as well, and I personally, I think that is really wrong, because I think that, like we just said, the minute, like, activism is based on emotion, right? Mm-hmm. Or do you think that's wrong? Like, that is how I view activism. And when I was writing it, I thought, maybe that's not the definition, so I'm willing to be corrected on that. Mm-hmm. But to me, I feel like activism is something you feel passionate about, so it's based on emotion, and therefore it doesn't have a place in learning.
I think, okay, I agree. Sorry, I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, go.
Okay.
Go.
I agree. I think most of it is.
I don't know. It's strange, isn't it? Because maybe I just don't get the definition, but to me, I feel like, you know, activism is kind of fighting for a cause based on emotion and maybe some evidence as well. Mm-hmm. Do you think? Whereas, like, for me, so if you're fighting against
what period in history.
Yes, right. That is true.
Yeah,
and it also depends, I guess. Like, I completely understand it. It depends on what you are, you know, campaigning about. Mm-hmm. But from the racism example, I guess I would be like, well, you know, yes, people have strong feelings about that, rightly so. But in terms of university and learning, it should be, let's educate ourselves. Mm-hmm. And then if we do that, you know, based on evidence and based on reason, then we will see that, you know, racism is completely unjustifiable.
Right.
So trying to look at it in a logical way, because then you know, and I get there's the whole, you know, is anything ever completely objective, and
Yes.
you know,
Yeah,
all that,
and it's true.
all that.
Yeah.
So I do get that, but I feel like, you know, looking at it as logically and as based on reason and science and evidence as we can, then to me, I feel like that is what university should aim to do in whatever subject. And maybe this isn't possible. I don't know. This is just sort of how I view it right now, but I'm very happy to be updated or have my opinion changed on this. But to me, I just feel like the minute you have a cause, then it's difficult. Like, actually, like exactly like you know, once you have a cause, it's really, really difficult to take other perspectives into account and update your own perspective, which I feel is what learning should be about, which is actually what you did. But I think what you did in terms of the abortion debate is very, very uncommon.
I think so too. Yeah, I actually agree. Well, I mean, I was actually chatting with one of my earlier episodes with a physicist named Sam Gregson, and so he is trying to have. We talked about abortion actually because he just had done a video just before we recorded about Bill Nye, and Bill Nye had done this little video on abortion and how it's only what all that matters is the woman's choice. And Sam took what is that? What is the word? Like he didn't. I know what you mean. Took something with it. He disagreed with that perspective because he's like, that's not a scientific perspective. And then he brought it up more and more about, and then we talked about it or whatever, more about what is the scientific way? What we don't actually have when a fetus is a baby. They're like, there's no. They're like, is it literally just the birth canal that creates a human? And I suppose, exactly. Like from your perspective, you were saying about the suffering thing. So that might be a different plane of talking. But he was talking about just literal biological, when is it an individual baby and when is it part of the mother still? And he's like, it's got to be somewhere in there. He's like, really? Because it can't just be. I think to quote him, I think he said literally on his video that he did about it, like the sides of a woman's vagina isn't what makes a baby a human person. Yes. Yeah. So, but we don't even, we're not even willing to have the talk about, okay, well, when does it become a baby in the gestation period? Because no one's willing to budge from their, life, pro-life, pro-choice. It's got to be all or nothing. And, and I mean, I think that we just need to be a little bit. So he was talking about bringing in the scientific method into that, and that was just the example. He's like, let's do this with everything, with intersectionality and racism. Like, so that's kind of what his thing is. Actually, it's really interesting. Is he does videos about what is, and he's like, I know I'm not perfectly objective. I'm a person, but I'm gonna use the tools like allotted to me the best I can to apply the scientific method to blank thing. Like I think even he's talked about veganism and or vegetarianism or just being against eating animals, and like he's brought like okay, well scientifically what the impact on the environment, or like that's mean. Like that's not an argument, so he's like, you can come up with reasons that it's scientifically why we should be against or for, but we don't need to just be using our emotions all the time. So, hence,
actually, you've just really made me think, because I am vegetarian, and that is like totally, and that is totally like, I just don't like the idea of something being killed.
Really?
So for me,
I literally just despite it's mean.
Literally everything. No, not at all. But it's just made me think that despite I'm just like, oh God, I'm a hypocrite, because despite everything I've just said, I do actually base my sort of
perspective.
It's a major part of your life, right? What you eat, and I do base that on emotion. So, do I need to go back and anything I just said?
Oh, but you know what though? You could factory farming is horrible. I've seen the videos, so I don't know. I mean,
that was actually what turned me. I have to say,
yeah,
back
those
in the day,
documentaries.
when I was like at school, which I'm sure wouldn't be allowed now. So it was like high school, and we had sort of like personal education, or social education, or whatever it was called now. And every week we would get shown like a video about some sort of topic. And one week we were shown one about animal rights. So it was like an animal rights group who had created this video. So obviously it was like utterly horrific. And it totally worked on me. I was like, oh my God, okay. So I went home and I said to my parents, I'm never going to eat meat again. And I haven't. But the thing is, you think like gods nowadays, they wouldn't be allowed to do that, right? There'd be trigger warnings, and there would be, quite aside from the fact that, showing such a blatantly biased video, but then that said, is there a way of showing the good side of killing animals? Maybe.
No, well, and I've listened to a few. Well, no, I've listened to a few like hunter perspectives on, say like Joe Rogan's podcast, because he hunts, and he has this guy named Steven Ranella on, and he's I think he has, oh shoot, I can't remember the name of his. He has a Netflix special, and it just shows sort of their. I mean, they go and they do like the hard stuff, like where it's like in crazy terrain, and like they kind of slowly like army crawl through the wilderness and and whatever, so like, I mean, and they eat it like that. That's what they eat, and some of it is actually population control, like legitimately, like there are they need to get rid of some of these deer and whatnot. And
I get, that's obviously much better than factory farming and all the rest of it. So I do.
But like doing it yourself, like, okay. So here, what I do is some friends from my church have they have a little farm with some cows. And so they have one slaughtered every year, and just, they don't make, I don't know, but they do, they're free range. There's no hormones. They're free range. So they're grass fed. There's nothing, like they have the best lives that a cow could have, and then one of them every year they start, and then they don't sell it. They actually just give it to us at cost. Like, so you just have to pay the butcher fee and pay however much the cow cost. So I got a quarter cow, and they split that with my in-laws, and so we have a freezer full of different like steak cuts and ground beef, and I feel good about it. Like every time I make tacos, I'm like feeling good about this ethically done food. Yeah, well, it's ethically sourced, I guess, and you can get, and I have a friend who gets eggs from a farmer, and she gets a bunch, and then I buy them from her, and they taste so much better. So, and free range, so I do think local is definitely, I think there's a case for that. And I don't know, can they do local in Scotland? I mean, you guys have sheep.
We have a lot of open spaces.
So I'd say local. I mean, it's expensive, but like, I mean, you don't eat any meat, so once a few weeks, it wouldn't be that expensive. I mean, girl, don't be rethinking your life here. Sorry, but I feel bad. I do feel like the grocery store mass produced. I mean, I saw one of pigs the other day that were just like just people walking through, and they're just like in these little horrible cages. And so, I don't love that. I don't think that's great. And I think there's definitely a case, like that's a scientific case. Those are the facts. Should animals suffer whilst they're living? Like, we eat them, we're fine to eat them. But that kind of seems to be where the line is. It's like we shouldn't be
whether they are ethically treated while they're alive.
Yeah, I think that there is an ethical question that I think we've answered. We shouldn't be letting animals or living things being suffer for the sake of our eating them. So anyway, what are you at? Like, what are you thinking? You're just thinking. You're just thinking. You don't have to say.
No, because now, I don't think I'm going to change my mind, because I am hands up, totally emotional, like ridiculously about animals. So I doubt I'm going to change my mind, but it is making me think, oh my God, do I have to now rethink all of my other beliefs?
About the emotional?
Just about it.
But no, but you know what? But what it can do is make you think a little bit more, and by you, I mean me as well. It helps me to think, like these people who are fighting for, women's rights or trans rights, or who like even the ones who are pushing for like the trans women competing in athletics, they are coming at that through this emotional reaction that I have in other ways of areas of my life. I'm not above it. And I think that's a good thing.
Exactly. And that's the thing, like, I do think we all have our triggers. Like, I hesitate with using that word, but I think we all triggers. Do.
But it's true.
Yeah, we all do have something, most of us anyway, I think that we get overly emotional or we are overly sensitive. I don't even want to say overly sensitive because that sounds derogatory, but we are particularly sensitive to or does touch us for whatever reason. I think we all do. But it is making me think, okay, so maybe there is... No, but then am I just trying to excuse myself now? Is there a role for emotion at all? Or am I just trying to justify back?
I think I've heard that we'd all be psychopaths without the emotion.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
I think there's a role.
I appreciate you trying to make me feel better now.
No, but that is the truth. Because I've sort of gone through the logic side of like, well, maybe we should just, but like, you need to have, that's where the compassion comes, right? That's where but checked by the logic.
Yeah. And I guess that is where we do get our sort of beliefs from, isn't it? There is a bit of emotion, but I guess it's trying not to let the emotion take over. Yeah. Do you think?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I feel like I'm just totally trying to justify myself now, but
don't worry. You had a realization on camera.
Am I getting there? Yeah. No, I did. It is one of these things. Like sometimes when you're, and it is something like I do try and do. Like I do try and check myself. And as I say, like, I know that I probably fool myself that I do it, I kid myself that I do it more than I do. But I do try and think, okay, so are you like wallowing in your own biases too much? Are you sort of like preaching everybody else, but actually you're doing that? Because that is something that like strikes me a lot on Twitter. A lot, especially the activists or the ones who are like, screaming and calling you names or whatever. I'm like, I always think, but you're doing exactly what you're criticizing me of doing. And I feel like there is no sort of self-reflection. So just even recently, I can't remember what the latest thing that I got into, but people were like, it was the whole, you've been internalized patriarchy, all that kind of stuff. And this one, she calls me a whiny white woman. Which the racism gets my back up slightly, but anyway, I was kind of like, but you're the one. It was one of these ones where they'd said all men, so a guy had been like, oh, well, I don't do that, and he was being, and then they were all jumped on and started slagging him off, but he was remaining incredibly polite, in your style, was remaining incredibly polite and was kind of like, okay, well, whatever, have a nice day, whatever. So then they started criticizing him for that. So I like jumped in, as I do. And then it was like, oh yeah, the whiny white woman and whatever. And I was like, but you're the ones who are complaining at this guy. And so often I feel like, and they just keep going and making themselves sound more and more unpleasant. And I'm like, do you never just take a step back ever and be like, is what I'm saying slightly unreasonable? Like if all your interactions, for example, are, falling out with people, do you not at any point take a step back and are like, okay, maybe I should reflect a little bit, self-reflect, which I feel like I always do, even when I'm arguing with idiots. I'm like, not being judgmental at all, but I do try and go, oh wait, is it me who's being a complete maniac here? And maybe I'm not being honest enough, because maybe I am the one being the maniac, but at least I try and do it.
But like, I think that, you know what though, like but you have the inside scoop because you're a psychologist and you know that self-reflection is helpful. Right? Yeah. Maybe people don't understand that self-reflection is like, they're having their authority figures. They talk about power structures. They're having their authority figures telling them, this is how it is. Anyone who goes against you, like what you said, for your own experience, they're perpetuating these harmful ideas. So I think that's part of the problem. And also Twitter seems to breed for a lack of self-reflection, I believe, even though I don't find that for me. And it sounds like you kind of are self-reflecting, but it's a sort of impulsivity. But I love Twitter so much, though.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. I actually have to rush off because I'm
we
getting
should go. Okay, yeah.
But,
Okay.
but no,
Bye.
but I just wanted to say I actually feel really bad for that because I've really enjoyed our chat.
No, yeah, well, thank you for chatting.
Thank you so much for asking me again.